Welcome. This is the Midlife Rising podcast. I'm thinking about my days when I struggled to lose weight, and maybe you can relate to this. Have you ever promised yourself that you'd start fresh on Monday, only to find yourself mindlessly snacking in the pantry by Wednesday? Or maybe even if you're me, by the end of the day on Monday? You're not alone if you do that. I've been there. And it also doesn't mean that you're undisciplined or lack willpower. Midlife can bring hormonal shifts, stress, other physiological changes that really cause the shape of our bodies to shift. But the real battle is actually happening internally and not in the way that you think. Here's a good stat for you. 90% of our behavior is automatic. We are on autopilot all day long, and it's not a problem. It's what your brain does to conserve energy. We're driven by subconscious beliefs, habits even that we might have chosen in childhood. So you can't expect to change your behavior around food without actually shifting those subconscious beliefs. So if you are someone who can't seem to lose the midlife belly, or maybe you even feel like you're gaining weight, it's at least in part because your subconscious is running a program that you didn't choose. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the real reason why midlife weight feels harder to lose than ever because of your subconscious beliefs and the emotional patterns that are driving your choices. So, some of the things we're going to talk about: why midlife amplifies old subconscious programming, how holiday stress really activates your nervous system, some of the hidden identity stories that really sabotage your weight loss efforts, why diet and exercise alone stop working in midlife. This is a key one, and we talked a bit about this last week. We're going to expand on that today, and also the exact shift that's going to create a quantum leap for you and your weight loss. So this conversation is going to help you really understand why you get stuck. And we're going to show you the missing pieces that really unlock lasting and peaceful, even weight loss for you as a midlife woman. So let's get into it. You're a woman over 40 who spent your life being the one who holds it all together. But now your body's changing and your soul is done pretending everything is fine. Welcome to Midlife Rising. We're your hosts, Sherry and Jen, twin sisters and modern medicine women, here to help you rewire your stress response, balance your hormones, and reclaim your feminine power. Every episode is a rebellion against the rules you never agreed to and a return to yourself. Join us where midlife isn't a crisis, it's a catalyst. Can I tell a quick story before we dive into how subconscious beliefs keep us from losing weight?
Yeah.
So, and I think you know this, and I've maybe talked about this before on the podcast, but I want to share it again because it was really a pivotal moment for me. When I first started practicing as a holistic nutritionist, I didn't focus in on women and hormones at first. I saw a lot of different people, men, women. I saw some seniors, some younger people, and I started to notice that I could give everybody a nutrition plan. Some people would implement it and some people wouldn't. And it really started to make me question, like, we don't learn about this stuff in nutrition school. We didn't learn like how to actually get people to follow the plan. And so I really started to question that. And what I noticed was that it had a lot to do with beliefs they had about themselves, about their schedule, about their bodies. And so I really started to realize that there was some subconscious programming. I wouldn't have called it that at the time. This was like, 12 years ago. And it wasn't, at the time, I didn't really know how to unravel that. But now, 10, 12 years later, I'm really excited about this because you can really see such a difference in how people implement a physical plan for themselves, exercise, diet changes, food related behavior, when we look at their subconscious programming.
You know what's interesting about that, Cher, is that most people will tell you that it's about commitment.
Yeah.
It's not about
discipline.
these other things. Yeah. It's about how committed you are and then how disciplined you are in following the thing, and actually has nothing to do with that. I mean, I shouldn't say nothing. There's an amount of commitment that you have to make in order to decide to change your behavior. But that's only the first step. There's so much more to it than that.
What I really want to start with, Jen, is some of the ways that these subconscious beliefs manifest.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the things that I did and that I saw my clients do, and heading into the holidays, I'm already thinking about this because I'm going to a Christmas party already on Friday. I would go into the party thinking, okay, I'm prepared. I had a salad, like I had a healthy dinner. I had some protein. I'm not starving. And so I'm just going to go and have, a few appetizers. And then, the night goes by and I've stuffed myself on top of having had dinner. And I get home and think, what the heck went wrong? Like, where did I feel like I felt so out of control? And how does everybody else look like they can just have one appetizer and stop?
I used to wonder that,
even though I know that's not actually the case.
I know. I always wonder that too. Like, how are you not eating all of this great food? How come you have so much self-control and I don't?
And I know that happens with, like, other people have said to me, well, you have so much self-control. And I'm like, what? Really? So I know other people feel like that too. Like they look at other people and think the same thing.
You have to be watching how that person's eating all night.
Well, yeah, exactly. The other thing that I have done, and this is one that I don't know if other people do because I'm not around and nobody has specifically said this to me, but if I'm the one who entertains, everybody leaves. I've eaten, some of those appetizers and things myself, but then everybody leaves and I start picking away again. Like finishing off the plate, or I don't know what it is. It's sort of, I've noticed it's a habit, but it's something that, like, suddenly I'm eating a whole bunch more food after I've already, like, I should be done. It's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night and I'm cleaning up. And why am I doing that?
That's not about the actual physicality of picking at the food after people are gone. And it's not about willpower either. That is about your body, or like your subconscious compelling you to eat. And the reason, to make that a bit more concrete, like you and I have struggled with our weight all our lives. We were always like 10, 15 pounds more over what we felt we should be or wanted to be.
Yeah.
Or more
for me.
Or more. Yeah. Actually, I was even more at a few points in my life than that. And throughout that whole period of struggling, so now I don't struggle with my weight anymore. For the last 10 years, I have not. And if I look at the before and after, the biggest thing that changed, and that was the most freeing, was that I no longer required willpower to stop eating. So before I needed to force myself, and I would find myself like at home, especially because I was single for that whole period, I'd find myself at home when I lived alone, especially. I'd finish dinner and I'd keep snacking on stuff. I'd like grab a little bit of granola for something sweet, and then I'd grab something else. And I'd be picking away at stuff for a while after dinner, as an example. And after Like when I dealt with all the subconscious stuff that was happening, that was keeping me compelled to gain weight or to stay at that weight, I no longer needed willpower. I finished dinner and I'm just like, okay, I'm done. I don't need it. To turn it back or to bring it back into the holiday time, there's a lot of stuff that brings up subconscious fears and beliefs and stuff about ourselves during the holidays. So recently, in the past year, I've noticed in myself, there are times when I feel compelled to keep eating, even though I'm finished eating and I'm not hungry anymore. And it's because there's been a lot of subconscious stuff that's been coming up in the last year. I had to move back. Like I separated from my husband. I moved out on my own. I've moved house twice. There's a lot of stuff going on. And that's when I've noticed. And so my weight has been fluctuating more this year. In fact, I weighed myself this morning after last week's, the podcast we were recording yesterday. And I've gained a few. And I know it's because of these subconscious things. So we can get into those in a bit, but
I'm so curious to talk more about this because I've uncovered some of my own subconscious beliefs. But Jen, as you know, I still have some of these lingering. So, some of the other things, and maybe our listeners will relate to these ways that, that these things are manifesting, especially during the holidays. Something else that Mike and I will do is I'll make Christmas cookies, like make them early so that they're ready, put them in the freezer, and then so that I won't touch them. And then I find myself like sneaking into the freezer all the time to grab a couple and eating them cold, even though that's not even how I really enjoy them.
Yeah.
Frozen.
Yep. I've been there. And then they're practically gone by the time Christmas gets here.
Yeah, totally. There's things that it really is about feeling this sort of compulsion to eat or mindlessly eat and then feeling shameful about it. Like then I'm, especially when it gets to be like when you start to judge yourself and perceive that this is bad behavior, and then you start doing it in secret because you don't want people to see you doing it, then you're feeling like, then there's shame there. That's why you're doing it in secret, and it makes it worse.
Yes, definitely. Like eating anything that you're keeping secret is because of shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So these are some of the ways that these manifest. I'm sure there are like so many different things that we do that we don't want to do, that we find ourselves doing during the holidays, especially. And last week we talked about some of the things that really help to avoid the holiday five, but we didn't really get into the subconscious patterns that are really running the show.
Absolutely.
Like I think it is so key. And that's what I saw, like going back to my story in the beginning, what I saw in my clients was I could give them a perfect plan. They could be committed and motivated and feel like they have a lot of willpower. And then they come back 2 weeks later and say, yeah, I didn't do any of it.
Because something was blocking them. I had shared that, like, I discovered this because, let me tell my story about how I lost the weight finally. And so it's not just that I think that subconscious patterns are beneath it. I know, like, you have to deal with the subconscious or you won't lose the weight. Like healthy eating, of course, you have to eat healthy. That's what you're putting into your body is the key, but what you put into your body is driven by what your subconscious is telling you to do. I struggled to gain weight to lose the weight all my life. And it was like up and down. And there were even some periods where I was sort of happy with my weight, but I never lost as much as I wanted. And it's suddenly, I did a few things accidentally when I was about 41. And the first is I started putting good things into my body. I started focusing on that, and it was purely accidental. Nobody told me to do it. I just started focusing on like, what good things can I eat for breakfast? Good things I can eat for lunch. And then by dinner, I'd want to eat good because I'd been good all day. And I sort of stopped feeling guilty for having a little treat after dinner. And but also because I had eaten well all day, like a good amount of fat, protein, vegetables, I wasn't craving carbs for dinner. So that was the first thing that I did. But then the other thing that I did is the weight started dropping off. That kickstarted it. I started to lose a little bit of weight. But then the weight started falling off of me when I released certain subconscious patterns that I believed about my weight, about my body, about the way I moved in the world. That was when it started falling off. Like I literally dropped, I think, 3 sizes. And stopped feeling all the guilt. I stopped feeling compelled. And like it was one day I suddenly noticed, I was like, oh, I just had a cupcake in front of my 2 skinny friends and I didn't feel guilty about it. And not even guilty. I didn't feel like they were judging me. And I also just went, I've been leaving food on my plate I don't have to finish my meal anymore. And I used to feel like I had to finish my meal. And I thought it was because I didn't like wasting food. And I knew it was partially because we were told always to finish our plate. We had to sit at the table. So I knew there was a childhood pattern there too, but it was actually much deeper than that. And when I released all of those patterns, it fell off and I stayed that way.
I think that is a level of freedom. Like I would describe that as freedom. Mm-hmm. That so many women would like to feel, to be able to just have the cookie, the cupcake, the chips, and not feel like, first of all, not feel like as soon as they start, they're going to get out of control. Like once I start on the chips, I'm just going to end up eating the whole bag.
Yes.
But also the freedom of not feeling judged. And this is a whole other topic because when like they didn't change your friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like you felt judged when you were maybe, in your opinion, overweight for eating the cookie, the whatever in front of them. Those same 2 people, your 2 skinny friends, you eat the cookie in front of them a year later after you've dropped the weight and you no longer feel judged. It's not because you lost the weight and it's not because they changed. Like that's all an internal thing, that perception of judgment. You're judging yourself. And you stopped doing that. And I think that's...
Yeah, because you're the one that's telling yourself, now I'm being bad.
Right. Nobody else is. Well, maybe your like fitness instructor is, or your own nutritionist, which is not something I ever did as a nutritionist.
Well, and there are people out there who judge overweight people.
Sure.
So there could be people out there judging, but you care so much that they're judging because you're judging yourself.
Well, and how do you know if they're judging you or not? Like it's your own perception that they're judging you when they might not. They maybe don't give a lick how heavy or light you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that perception of judgment is actually, like I say that and compare you and the same 2 friends, suddenly you feel like they're not judging you anymore because you're not judging you anymore.
Yes. I wasn't judging my own body. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And it's not because you lost the weight either. It's because you changed your perception. Like there are a lot of slim or strong or people who we would look at and say, well, that person has a quote unquote perfect body and they're still judging themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about your size or your shape. It's how you feel about it.
That's the part that's so hard for women, is that they're like, well, how do I stop caring, or how do I stop hating my body, hating how fat I am? Not everybody's fat, but like, how do I stop doing that before I actually lose the weight? I have to lose the weight first. And it's so hard to understand that concept. And the problem is that it's your subconscious. It's not a conscious thing. You can't think your way into loving your body before you lose the weight. You have to release the subconscious patterns first, or beliefs about yourself.
Okay. So do you want to start talking about what those are? The subconscious patterns?
Yeah.
Subconscious beliefs?
Yeah. I think we should talk about some of ours first, like so that, because they're probably relatable.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the biggest ones was, and it actually was an energy healer that helped me discover this. And now that's what I do, is I use energy and hypnosis to help women discover them for themselves. But so she helped me discover this. And it was that I had this anomaly in my body. I had a fear of starvation and a fear of wealth at the same time. And it was creating this conflict inside my body, like fear of wealth and abundance, and food is abundant. So starvation was showing up. The fear of starvation was showing up as, okay, I don't know when I'm next going to eat, so I'm going to eat extra now. And I remember that way back in high school, before we were headed out to, like, we used to downhill ski. And before we would head out to ski, I'd be like, ooh, I'm going to have extra breakfast today because I don't know when we're having lunch. So it was this fear that I was going to be unable to go without food. And then the other way that showed up was, especially at family dinners, like my ex's family, his dad would take us all out for dinner every once in a while. And we go to this tapas place, this Greek tapas place in Johannesburg. And so we'd order all these different tapas. And I couldn't eat gluten. So I'd say, well, can we order some French fries for me? And can we order like some gluten-free things for me? And then I'd be afraid that everybody else was going to eat my stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I can relate to
regardless of the gluten thing. I was still always like, at those family meal kind of things, I was always like, well, I hope those other people don't take too much because I need to have some left for me. And this was not a conscious thought. This was like my subconscious fearing that there wasn't going to be enough food for me, which is,
I can totally relate to that.
And let me back it up too. Like, it sounds weird that we have a fear of starvation in this day and age. So this is an evolutionary, ancestral belief system. So beliefs can be passed down. You can get them. You can start believing something in this life, like because you've been taught through social conditioning, parents, authority figures. You can also receive beliefs genetically.
Tell our listeners more about that.
Okay, in this case, actually, I discovered when I dug deep into this, our family, our ancestors, great-grandparents went through a period where they almost starved. And that fear was passed down through eggs and sperm, like through genetics. They get encoded into your genetics. It's part of the epigenetics field of study. They get coded in your DNA.
We talked about this a couple of episodes ago with the rats that they exposed to. Okay, I'll really quickly tell this again. The rats were exposed to a smell, innocuous smell, cherry blossoms, and were shocked at the same time, given an electric shock. And then
they were shocked so many times that they avoided the cherry blossoms. And then their babies who had never been exposed to an electrical shock or cherry blossoms were exposed to the cherry blossoms and avoided them.
Even though they weren't shocked.
Even though they weren't shocked. And even though they never knew anything about cherry blossoms or...
Mm-hmm. And it happened for several generations. Like not just the next generation, but like it was passed down without ever being exposed to the shocks.
Exactly. That's how our societies learn.
Right.
And so in this case, our ancestors, our great-grandparents who had almost starved had passed this belief, like, we might starve, down through the egg that we were born from was in mom's womb when her mother was having these fearful thoughts. So it can be passed down in multiple ways. And then of course we were built in our mother's womb. So anything she felt during that time was also.
Well, and just to take that a step further, Jen. So an egg is in her mother's womb when her mother is in her grandmother's womb.
I know, I couldn't even explain that because it's like mind bending for me.
Yeah. Like a baby is growing in her mother's womb and her eggs are also already developing.
Right. So her eggs, even though she still isn't even born yet, are being affected by her mother. So this starvation, subconscious fear of starvation had been passed down through generations. And then also, which I just realized now, for us, when we were in the womb together and mom didn't know she was having twins, her doctor put her on this ridiculously stringent diet. Remember, she always talks about how her rings were falling off and she lost all this weight and her arms were like so skinny. And so she was starving when we were in her womb. So
I never even thought about that.
So that fear of starvation, like I was born with a fear of starvation. So of course, when there's food around, I'm going to feel compelled to eat.
Right.
In case there isn't more food.
Yeah.
And how in the world, like there is no amount of dieting that I could have done.
It's a compulsion. It's your subconscious is driving you.
Mm-hmm.
That is so interesting. I actually didn't know that, Jen. I mean, I knew that mom was on that diet for like 2 months because they thought before ultrasounds, they thought she was just gaining weight way too fast. And I remember that. I remember her telling us that. But I had never connected that she would feel like she was starving. And we might also physiologically have also felt malnourished.
Like there was a lack of nutrients. So we would have also possibly felt that we were starving. And so then also like this fear of wealth and abundance caused this constant conflict within me, wanting to eat more, wanting to eat less. Because the fear of looking too wealthy or fear of looking too abundant shows up as I've eaten too much. Like in our society, it's different today, but as we evolved, like if you imagine a tribe back in cave person days, if there was a fat person,
that person was taking up too many resources.
Yeah. And so I had this, like, I didn't want to take up too many resources. I don't want to waste food. I don't want to look like I'm wealthy. I didn't want to look like I was wealthy and that also comes down to our ancestors. Like they were very wealthy in Russia and were part of the Bolshevik revolution when the peasants were uprising against the rich people and the rich people were literally being killed for being wealthy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this constant subconscious conflict within my body was creating a very warped sense of food or sense of like relationship with food for me.
Yeah, Jen, you've told me, like we've talked about a lot of this before, but I'm actually even having my own ahas over here. Like,
so that was our own. And then you discovered one at one point too for yourself.
Right.
We were always the smallest in the class at school and everyone was always commenting on it. Like everyone was commenting like Jen and Cher, oh, they're so cute. These little twins, they're always the smallest in class. And I hated being the smallest in the class.
So I realized that this was I was using my body as a way to take up more space in the world. So, and it wasn't just my weight. Like I was taking up more, I was subconsciously putting on weight to be able to take up more space. But I also did it by wearing high heel shoes because I wanted to add more height. And like there were other ways that I was doing this to create more of a presence for myself. And this actually came up recently, Jen, when a year ago when I got so sick and lost probably 12, 13 pounds, which is a lot on our small frames. And it came up again. Like I had these feelings like this feeling that I'm so small. Like suddenly I was like walking into, I had to get new clothes because I dropped, I think, I don't know, I dropped at least 2 sizes. So none of my clothes fit anymore. And walking into stores and they didn't have clothes small enough for me.
Oh, that's happened to me too. I had a 00 on it at American Eagle Outfitters. I was like, who, like if I can't, and we're not that tiny. Like
there's definitely people who are smaller than us.
Yeah. And I
like
was
women, grown women.
And we're not a doubles, like I'm not a 00. That's just getting ridiculous. But I mean, that was partially their sizing, but yeah.
Well, except that I was. Like I was a 0 or a 00 when I walked into this store had those, this was a more of a boutique store. So it wasn't the lower end, where they tend to shift the sizing. So
we feel good about ourselves.
Yeah. Well, yeah, except that I started to feel bad about myself. It was a very strange moment when I was like, I'm so uncomfortable right now being this small. Like on the one hand, I was like, wow, it's so nice to walk into a store and actually have so many I can try on so many pairs of jeans and actually like them all, when it used to be I'd try on 100 pairs of jeans and I'd find one that sort of fit the bill, but never feel like it was great. Like it was either a bit too big on the waist or it was a bit too big on the hips, or it was like somewhere it didn't quite fit great or look great in my eyes. And that part felt like freedom. I was like, oh, I can walk into a store and things fit on the waist and the hips and the thighs. And so that was nice. But then on the other hand, I had this internal, like, I don't know what to call it, like this ping that was like, this is too small. Like you're too small now. Like you're not going to be, you're that small little twin girl again.
And that subconscious pattern, it's a program that's running in the background like white noise, is going to cause you to gain weight no matter how much you diet, because there's always this compulsion. So you fall off the wagon, you get back on and stuff like that.
Well, and Jen, you and I have talked about this. I want some theta healing and hypnosis because all that weight that I lost when I was sick, it has slowed over the past year, like kind of a steady pound a month has come back on. And I lost the weight because I was sick, but it wasn't that I wasn't eating anything. Something else shifted and now it's shifted back. And I don't like it. I mean, I still feel like I'm not, I don't feel like I used to about my body, but I have this feeling that, we're back here again in this body that I had a year ago that I had actually, I don't know, I had actually liked having lost the weight. And now
it's like a battle. Like your body, your internal subconscious wants you to be bigger, but it doesn't want you to be bigger. And that's exactly what happens. And like when our weight is fluctuating too. And so for you, there's also this thing, and I can say this because I know you so well. And what we experienced in childhood was our mother and their culture telling us that we didn't have an opinion. So part of it was she didn't listen. I never felt she listened to us. She'd ask a question and then turn around and not listen for the answer.
How would that relate to weight?
It's telling. So in your situation, and then the other thing is like children are supposed to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get a voice.
Not supposed to take up space.
We're not supposed to take up space. We're not supposed to have an opinion or a voice. And she made a lot of our decisions for us. So I wasn't supposed to have an opinion because I'd get shouted at if I was voicing my opinion too much. So internally that creates a fight. You've got your mother figure telling and cultural conditioning that's telling you to get smaller. But at the same time, you've got this like, oh, she's the smallest in the class. There's another side of you that's going, well, I need to be bigger to have a voice and an opinion. If I was just bigger and then I could stand up for myself and then I would have an opinion. that was worthy. All of these mixed messages that we get as children, our little tiny brains don't know how to process that. So we choose beliefs about ourselves, about what we're worth in the world that don't serve us in adulthood.
That really brings that full circle to what's happening physiologically. Because when you have conflict in your body, when you have these mixed messages and your subconscious is like, no, we need to do this. No, we need to do this. No, we need to think this. That conflict causes cortisol to rise. And so then your cortisol goes, all right, if you have too much cortisol, then you're going to pack on the weight, especially around the belly.
Yes, because that's exactly what cortisol does. So you get caught in this trap of you're having all this resistance in your body. And by the way, that's what feels so freeing. It's not just that I've lost all this weight that I feel free. It's that I can stop having all this resistance. Like, oh, I shouldn't have that. Oh, that's bad. I should eat this. That you don't even know what you want anymore because there's so many shoulds coming at you from all this mixed messaging from your childhood. So that causes all this resistance and cortisol. Your nervous system is imbalanced or dysregulated, whatever term you want to use, creating cortisol. And then cortisol tells your body to hang on to fat, and then that fat becomes, because now we don't have estrogen in our body to buffer the cortisol. Cortisol is what creates the fat around the middle in particular, not just general weight gain. It does too, but it tells you to hold on to it around the middle. And that's why it becomes so exacerbated in midlife, because you don't have the estrogen to like regulate the whole physiological piece of it that happens because of your subconscious beliefs.
I hope our listeners are finding this as fascinating as I do. I just think it's so, like, when you draw the link between like what is going on in our minds and our bodies and this, like, all this tension that we feel, like, how many women feel that all the time? Like, you put food in front of them and there's a conflict. There's tension. There's, I shouldn't be eating this, or I should be eating this, but it's not really what I really want. Like, it's a salad and I don't really want a salad right now. Like, it would be so liberating for so many women to just not feel that way.
It gets embarrassing too, almost. Like, I felt when I first met my husband and we would go out for dinner, he would kind of like, he'd be like, why does it take you so long to make a decision about on a menu? Because what he does is he reads the menu only to the point where he sees something that he wants and then he closes it. He doesn't even look at the rest of the menu.
I find that so, like, that's wild to me.
I know. To me,
I have to read the whole menu.
Yes.
Yeah. I've got to read the whole menu. And then I look for all the things that are healthy in my mind. Like, because I'd like to eat healthy if I can. But then I'm distracted by all the things that I really want or that sound good, even though they're like really rich or whatever. I know I'm not going to feel good after I eat them. And then I've got another layer of like, oh, but that looks really expensive. And maybe I shouldn't order the most expensive thing on the menu. It's a constant like, oh, what should I get? I'm going to get this. No, I think I'm going to get that. And I've definitely shifted a lot of this. But yes, my husband does the same thing. He gets exacerbated because it takes me so long to make a decision at a restaurant. And then I have meal envy at the end of it.
Yeah. And then you're afraid of meal. So then you start asking everybody else what they're having, or it's because you don't know what you really want anymore, or you refuse to acknowledge what you really want. And you're so busy depriving yourself that it's this horrible decision that shouldn't be a difficult decision. And it is freeing when you start to just look at a menu and go, this is what I want. This is what I'm having today.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It takes so much energy to debate with yourself.
Oh, I know. And then midlife women wonder why they're so tired all the time, even when they get 8 hours of sleep. It's because of this inner conflict that's constantly happening that we don't even, sometimes we realize it. Some of it we realize it. And there's a whole other piece that just.
And it extends well beyond food. Like it's standing in front of the closet in the morning going, what should I wear? This doesn't look good on me. Those jeans are too tight. These pants look too casual. It follows you around all day long, trying to make decisions. Yeah.
Okay. So should we talk about some of the other beliefs that might be like something that we haven't necessarily experienced ourselves?
Yeah. I've got a bit of a list here, Jen. Fear of attention is one thing that can come up. And I think we talked about this before, that came up for both of us as well. Like, what will people think if I lose a whole bunch of weight? Or for me, it was actually about getting strong. Like when I started lifting weights and somebody commented on how strong I was, and I was like, oh, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. Like, I don't want to be one of those ladies. I'd rather be like skinny.
There's a judgment around, yeah. Yep. Fear of getting that attention. We don't want to be the center of attention. The fear of failing, like we don't even sometimes start. And you and I don't believe in diets anymore anyway, but your like if you're afraid of failing because you don't want to disappoint yourself again, or that can be one. But I think like some of those people might know. Some of the things that I've thought about and that I've encountered with people is you can take on an identity. So if you've been overweight all your life, you might have an identity as I'm the fat person.
Or I'm just I've just always struggled with my weight. It's not there's almost a resignation there. We talked a bit about that last week. Like resigning yourself to, I'm just someone who struggles with her weight. And that's just like, I was born that way.
I'm just the person that struggles with my weight. And so you can take on those kinds of identities that without really realizing it. Like that is an identity. I'm the person that struggles with their weight. I struggle with my weight. That isn't even just a belief anymore. That has become, you are identifying as a person who struggles with their weight. And then our ego likes to hang on to identities, because if we don't have that identity, then who are we? And that might not make sense to some listeners, but that is what our ego does. And so if suddenly you're not a person who's struggling with your weight, then how do you identify with your body? Who am I now? And we have tons of these identities that will stop you from losing weight, or that will stop you from changing your behavior in any way.
Especially if we over-identify with one of those identities. That's when it becomes a problem. Like we all have identities. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a dog lover. I have lots of identities. And it's when we over-identify with, like, for example, the slim woman. If you over-identify with that identity and have an idea of what that means for you, and you strive for that, and you will begin to feel like you don't have value or you're not good enough until you are that identity.
Mm-hmm. Or if you've been the slim woman all your life and you identify as a slim woman, and suddenly your weight is changing in midlife and there's a bit of weight around your middle, and you always prided yourself on your flat tummy, this can be very stressful for you, because you've always been known for your body or your looks, and suddenly just aging in general, suddenly your looks aren't what they used to be. And our society values youthfulness and slimness. If you were that and now you're not becoming that as society just defines it, that's very scary. And your body will release cortisol, and that just makes it worse.
So let's run through a few others and then we'll start wrapping this up, Jen. Some of the other things that you and I were talking about earlier are changing family dynamics. So how are you going to be perceived by your family members if you lose weight? If you have a partner who also wants to lose weight, or you have a friend, this might extend beyond family. if you know someone close to you who's also trying to lose weight and then you lose the weight and they don't, there can be guilt around that. I'm going to make them feel uncomfortable. So, it's kind of like
when I first started losing all that weight, and I had friends who I knew had been struggling to lose weight, and they said, "Wow, you've lost a lot of weight, Jen." I felt like they were envious of me. And then I felt kind of icky about it. And they might not have been envying me at all.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but that was what I felt.
Mm-hmm. We have so many internal perceptions about what people think and do and feel that we have no idea if they're actually true.
Yeah. Okay, Cher, before we close this, I want to talk about some of the emotional associations. And these are probably more top of mind for people. But there's some deeper potential ahas when I talk about this emotional association. Food is, like, some of us see food as a reward, for one thing. I can have the chocolate if I'm good all day, that kind of stuff. Or if I've worked hard enough, I get a treat. If I'm whatever. And then there's this thing around food being a substitute for love. And I want to describe that because it's not described very often. And I learned this in the book called Mother Hunger, but I want to get the author's name because I actually forget her name. Kelly McDaniel. So the way she describes it is that food, when you're an infant, food and nurturing tend to come together. If you're breastfed, you're cuddled, you're nurtured. And actually, she doesn't even like calling it breastfeeding because she calls it nursing, because nursing has more of a nurturing, comes from the word nurturing, because that's what we're doing when we are breastfeeding our babies. So an infant who is not nurtured, but still gets food, like they've been kept alive. So we have pictures of ourselves having a bottle in our chair things. Like when we were infants in the like lying down with a bottle that was in a plastic holder above us. So I don't know how often mom actually fed us in her arms and how often we were actually just being fed by a plastic bottle that was attached to our crib thing.
And can I just stop for a second? Because I need to qualify that, because we were 70s babies. Most women, this was the craze when Nestle was out there. Like all these companies were out there talking about how formula was better. So this is not a knock against the mothers who were having babies in the 70s. Like our mom, that was normal.
Yes. Well, it was normal to be formula fed, and we were twins, and mom was going crazy trying to manage twins. So there's no knock on mom. The other thing that Kelly McDaniel talks about in her book is that mothers who don't nurture, they don't do it because they didn't learn how to nurture. They didn't get the nurturing themselves. So it's been passed down. So if you didn't learn, you weren't nurtured yourself, you don't even know how to nurture your own baby. So there's no fault here. But that's what it is if you got food without enough nurturing, without the nurturing that you wanted or needed as an infant, you start to associate the food with nurturing. So it starts, your relationship with food as a substitute for love or for nurturing starts as an infant, can start as an infant.
I think a lot of women would actually relate to that because they know that they're using food to self-soothe.
Mm-hmm. And that's what we do. If we don't, babies are hardwired for connection. And if we don't get enough connection, we don't feel safe. And so then, and that's what a mother's body is to us when we are first born. The nurturing plus food equals safety. If you only get the food and not enough nurturing when you need it, first of all, you start to associate food with safety. not just love, but safety. And then if you don't have food or nurturing, your body is releasing cortisol. So your nervous system gets wired for protection, not wired for connection. And if your nervous system is wired for protection, you are going to eat.
When I think about all the women who are now in their 50s, born in the 70s, and were not nursed, they were given formula, bottle fed. Like, how many of us are walking around with that feeling of needing food for protection versus nourishment?
Well, and bottle feeding also isn't bad if it comes with nurturing. So we're not knocking bottle feeding either, because sometimes that's what women have to do. So there's no judgment here in this conversation. But the point is that this creates it creates a nervous system imbalance from when you're a baby. And she says that 50% of people are walking around with this. She calls it, in psychology, it's called attachment, insecure attachment. And she says that,
yes,
I think it's 50% of the population is walking around like that with insecure attachment. And that is going to cause all sorts of food issues. But it also, for midlife women, so this is the last thing I want to say, is for midlife women, that not getting enough nurturing or insecure attachment causes your nervous system to be in protection mode, which means your cortisol is going to spike much more easily than the woman who is securely attached. And we know that cortisol is what disrupts, it overrules estrogen. When your estrogen is starting to decline, it disrupts all your sleep. It disrupts your insulin balance so that you want to eat more, and then you gain the weight. So all of this is like a perfect storm.
That is so fascinating. And I really want to pick up that book again. I read the first little bit of it. And then I think I must have got distracted with the other 6 books that I'm always have on the go. So, anything else you want to say on that? The emotional associations, Jen?
No, well, the only other thing I want to say is that there are millions, and they're all unique to each person. Like these subconscious patterns, some of them might resonate. Like there's some common ones, but there are also very unique situational, emotional attachments and beliefs to each person that each person will hold on to, or not everyone holds on to these, but that can be discovered. And so we're like scratching the surface here about what we're talking about. And in our program, we get into much deeper subconscious patterns. I actually use my hypnosis process to help release them. Like there's so much more, is all I wanted to say.
Just to take that a step further, we're talking about this because we see this as the missing link in midlife weight loss, in a lot of our different behaviors. But, today we're talking about weight loss and midlife in particular, because we all, it's known, the midlife belly fat. It's it's become a norm, and yet it doesn't have to be. It's all this, it's what the weight loss industry is not talking about that is really going to move the needle.
Yeah. And the weight loss industry or fitness industry, maybe it's called now, talks about mindset shifts. But that's just reframing things. That's like changing your view of eating healthy from I'm going to cut out all these things to I'm going to add all these things, all these good things. I'm going to cut out all these bad things, reframe that as I'm going to add all these good things. That's a reframe.
And that's great. That's
oh, yeah,
helpful.
It's helpful. But that's mindset coaching. This is much different.
It's deeper. We get into the mindset coaching too, but adding that mindset reframe isn't going to work if you've got a subconscious belief that prevents you from sticking to that or adding it won't stick.
No,
I guess is
you
my
fall
point.
You fall back off the wagon.
It requires willpower. Okay, so let's wrap this up. So all that to say,
that was a long one.
We're scratching the surface, and it was long, and we're still only scratching the surface. So if you want to know more, we've got a mini workshop coming up. Check the show notes for the link to that, because we have them on a regular basis. So check the show notes for the link to find out when the next one is. And we would love to see you there. That's where we're going to share our exact formula for first becoming aware of your own subconscious beliefs, and then rewiring them, and then also embodying them. So we're going to share our framework. And if you found this helpful, share it with a friend who you know has been also struggling with the midlife weight gain or the belly fat. That's how the word about our podcast gets out. So we would greatly appreciate it if you shared it with someone who also is struggling with their midlife weight. Come back next week for another episode, and we'll see you then.